Let's start with why process modeling. So as a process owner once put it, process modeling is like turning a lot of light bulbs on in the minds of managers. In other words, it's like achieving transparency. Transparency as deep understanding of the way our organization operates. So how do we convey this transparency into a process model? We do that by covering three different aspects of the organization. First of all, we need to capture what we need to do and when. We call this the control flow perspective. This means identifying the activities and the events that have to be performed or have to be triggered during the execution of this business process. For example, an event could be that we receive an invoice, and upon the receipt of that invoice, we need to capture the invoice details. Then we need to check the invoice for mismatches, and we may have two possible outcomes of these activities. On the one hand, if there are any mismatches, then we proceed on with the posting of the invoice. Otherwise, if there are mismatches, we need to block the invoice. So as you can see in this simple example, for handling invoices, we have represented a number of events: invoice received and invoice posted and invoice blocked as part of this business process, with invoice posted and invoice blocked as being the two possible outcomes of this overall business process. And then we have represented 4 activities that have to be performed in a given order for this process to take place. We have also represented a decision point. In fact, the result of checking invoice for mismatches could be that the invoice does contain mismatches or does not. So this is the control flow perspective. The second perspective is the object or data perspective. In this perspective, we represent what we need to work on. So essentially, we represent the objects, either physical objects like an invoice on a piece of paper, or information artifacts like a purchase order over email, like on PDF, that have to be manipulated as part of this business process. So for example, as a result of entering the invoice details, this activity will have an invoice, like an electronic file, which is then used as input to the subsequent activity, check invoice for mismatches. And we may even use data stores, like a database, to retrieve customer information, or like in this case, to store the invoice. So this is the data or object perspective. The third perspective is the resource perspective, which captures who does the work. So here we are talking about either human beings, like process participants, such as a senior financial officer, or systems like an ERP, enterprise resource planning system, that have to be used in order to actively perform the activities. In this example, enter invoice details, check invoice mismatches, and post invoices are automated activities because they are performed by the ERP software system. Whereas block the invoice is an activity that requires manual checking, and as such, it is performed by a senior finance officer, so a human resource. So, to recap, there are 3 key ingredients of a process model. We talk about what we need to do and when, meaning the activities and events. This is the control flow perspective. We talk about what we need to work on. This is the data or object perspective. And then we talk about who does the work, which is the resource perspective. Now, besides the control flow, the data and resource perspective, in a model, we can bring other perspectives or other aspects of the organization. We can bring in risks in order to risk profile our business process, also policies and rules for compliance purposes, or knowledge to depict expertise required. And there are other further aspects that we may bring in.